Deep within a shadowy cave, the sharp clang of a pickaxe striking stone echoes. A young man with striking white hair pauses as he spots glowing, blue droplets seeping from a ceiling crack. His eyes widen, blazing with excitement. He's finally found what he's been searching for. Carefully, he positions a bottle, ready to catch the precious falling liquid, recognizing this glowing substance as ink. The young man thanks the tiny, black cat perched on his shoulder. Nero, acknowledging this discovery was only possible, thanks to his keen senses. He glances toward the light at the cave's exit, thinking that if he can just bring this ink back, the pioneering corps might finally accept him. Feeling a wave of relief, he steps out of the cave onto a desolate, gray wasteland. His gaze falls upon a massive, radiant metropolis shimmering in the distance. Inside that dazzling, vibrant city, a roaring crowd cheers for the arrival of elite warriors, known as the colorists. They stride proudly, their hair a spectrum of vibrant colors. Two citizens gaze in awe at the warriors, discussing how the team successfully brought down yet another, monstrous giant creature. They know that as long as these heroes stand guard, their shining city will remain eternally safe. However, the scene abruptly shifts to the darker, grimmer Shadow District. A long line of hopefuls waits outside a building, where a bulletin board loudly announces the entrance exam for the C-rank Pioneering Corps, explicitly stating, "Anyone with color is welcome." Suddenly, with a shocking force, the white-haired young man is violently hurled out, crashing onto the ground as two examiners glare down. One examiner yells, "This place isn't for people like you." The young man leaps up in frustration, holding out the bottle of shimmering blue ink. He demands, "What's the problem?" Insisting this ink proves his qualifications. The examiner jabs a finger accusingly at the boy, and spells out the brutal, harsh reality. "You're rejected because you're colorless." He coldly explains that in this world, roles are strictly decided at birth, then mocks the boy for not knowing his place. The red-haired examiner unleashes a powerful surge of crimson energy. Scoffing, he calls the young man a damn colorless. Our white-haired protagonist flinches, groaning in pain as the energy engulfs him. Standing imperiously at the top of the stairs, the examiner lectures the kneeling boy about pioneers. With an arrogant sneer, he declares that only chosen people, like himself, are capable of becoming one. The examiner explains that the Black Lands, lying beyond the city walls, are a perilous place where the weak cannot survive. A truly terrifying landscape, swallowed by darkness and teeming with dangerous beasts, known as creatures. He glorifies the pioneers, who bravely risk their lives to explore, gather resources, and fight these monsters for humanity, earning them the esteemed title of heroes. Snapping back to the present, the examiner stares coldly at our protagonist, stating that for a colorless person, achieving such feats is utterly impossible. He harshly insults the boy, telling him to know his place and stick to menial work. He issues one final, chilling threat, warning the boy he'll die if he ever comes back, and slams the door shut, leaving him alone. The protagonist looks downcast, as a soft sound echoes from his chest. Nero, the black cat, pokes his little head out of the boy's jacket. The protagonist gently pets the cat, saying they can just try somewhere else instead, because he's used to this kind of cruel rejection. Despite the humiliation, he forces a determined smile, and promises Nero that he will become the greatest colorist ever. He quickly tucks the cat back inside his clothes, worried someone might spot him. The protagonist walks through the industrial streets, wondering where they could possibly go next. As he walks dejectedly onward, he hopes to find a place that will finally accept them, unaware he's being watched from above by a man with green hair. Later, the protagonist stands in a busy plaza, carefully checking his notebook. He violently crosses out another location in his book, a book already filled with crossed-out names, realizing he's been rejected everywhere. He lets out a weary sigh, utterly defeated. Completely resigned to his fate, he trudges up to a building, its sign boldly declaring, "Mari's Workshop," he mutters. It can't be helped now. He pushes open the door and calls out to the owner inside. A girl with striking white hair and goggles pushes up her goggles and welcomes him back with a bright, cheerful smile. Marie immediately spots our protagonist's gloomy expression and guesses he's flunked yet another exam. As Nero, her charming cat, hops onto the table, she greets him warmly. She attempts to cheer our protagonist up, insisting the examiners are totally blind to his talent. However, he remains discouraged, asking, "What good is my strength if no one will accept a colorless person like me?" Marie argues that his skills are undeniably proven by the fact that he consistently brings back vital resources from the perilous Black Lands. Our protagonist, ever humble, claims that his survival is only possible due to Nero's help. Changing the subject, Then, he places a bottle of bright blue ink on the table, and asks if she can purchase it. Mari is delighted and readily agrees to pay him well. She pours the vivid blue liquid into a pipe system, complaining that ink prices have skyrocketed due to severe shortages. The protagonist notes, this very scarcity is precisely why people are calling for more pioneers. A view of the intricate machinery shows that their very livelihood depends on these colorful fluids. Our protagonist sighs, frustrated that no core will give him a chance. Marie then asks if he's thought about her previous suggestion. When he hesitates, muttering the place she mentioned seems a bit. Mari abruptly slams a piece of paper onto the table, shouting that he absolutely has to try everything. The flyer reveals a recruitment notice for the S rank, Dawn Pioneering Corps, stating the entrance test is open to all and is based strictly on skill. Our protagonist stares at the paper in utter shock. He admits that he always hesitated to apply to the prestigious S rank corps, simply assuming he'd fail. He wonders if such a prestigious place would truly recognize his skills. Marie urges him to seize the opportunity. She reiterates that if it's truly skill-based, he might finally earn the acknowledgement he's always deserved. She smiles, reminding him he's dreamed of being a colorist for a very long time. A flashback reveals a young, lonely protagonist standing in the rain, clutching Nero tightly. This reveals he's held onto this dream since childhood. Marie assures him she'll always support him. Bolstered by her unwavering confidence, the protagonist finally smiles and realizes he can't hesitate any longer. He firmly grasps the recruitment flyer, his determination renewed. He waves goodbye to Marie and exits the workshop. Walking through the quiet alleys of the Shadow District, the protagonist clutches the flyer close, thinking he needs to prepare absolutely thoroughly for the exam. Suddenly, he halts as Nero reacts to a presence right behind them. A voice casually asks, "What is wrong?" A hand holding a wooden wand, tipped with a glowing green orb, appears from the shadows. The green-haired man, who had been spying on him, aims his wand directly at the protagonist. A magical crosshair locks onto his back. Without hesitation, he fires a blade of green energy. The protagonist turns in shock, but he's far too slow. The energy blast strikes him violently, causing him to scream out in agony. As he collapses, the green-haired man and his assistant stand over him. The attacker mocks him, noting that although he dodged a direct kill shot, he'll be dead soon anyway. Bleeding and utterly unable to move, the protagonist lies helpless on the pavement, while the attacker coldly remarks that no one cares if a colorless person dies. The protagonist weakly calls out to his cat, seeing Nero's terrified face peeking from his clothes. The boy uses his last ounce of strength to urge the cat to run far away. The scene shifts to an industrial area, marked with a warning for an ink waste disposal site. The protagonist groans as he slowly regains consciousness, only to see the green-haired man grinning down at him. The man grips him tightly by the collar, dangling him precariously over a massive vat of black sludge. He taunts our protagonist, sneering that it's unlucky for him to be thrown in. While still alive, the attacker explains, this pit holds ink waste, a deadly mixture that dissolves anything it touches, ensuring no body will remain. But terrified, the protagonist struggles fiercely, demanding to know who this man is, and why he's been attacked. The green-haired man then reveals that he and his partner were shocked earlier while spying on him. A flashback shows that, while they were watching, they hadn't been interested in him, but in the creature hiding in his jacket. The man explains that a creature with the intelligence to follow a human is an incredible discovery. He calls Nero a true rarity as he tightens his grip around the protagonist's throat. Behind him, his assistant holds up a small cage. Inside, Nero sits trapped and crying, while the protagonist looks on in horror, realizing his beloved companion has been captured. Desperate, the protagonist grabs the green-haired man's collar, screaming at him to let go of the cat. The attacker is utterly unimpressed, mocking the boy's anger as pathetic. His eyes glow with pure greed as, he explains, the creature is too valuable for a colorless owner, and will be sold for a huge sum on the black market. He easily overpowers the boy, choking him and lifting him into the air, sneering that the pet is simply too good for him. As he hangs helplessly, the protagonist scolds himself for being so careless. In the Shadow District, he reflects on his lonely past, thinking that, while he has always endured discrimination, he absolutely refuses to lose Nero, his only family, over something like this. With a sudden burst of fury, he warns the man not to mess with him, and tightens his grip on the attacker's arm. The green-haired man pauses, noticing something strange. His arrogant smirk twists into pure shock, as raw energy crackles around his face. A swirling green aura pours from the attacker, directly into the protagonist's outstretched hands. The man cries out, panic seizing him, as something is violently ripped from his very being. Terrified by this inexplicable sensation, the man violently shakes the boy free, hurling him backward into a vat of toxic ink waste. The attacker dismisses the chaotic encounter as a mere waste of time, while Nero wails desperately from his confined cage. The villains gloat, declaring themselves instantly rich, and make their way to the black market, ignoring the cat's silent cries deep beneath the murky black liquid. The protagonist watches, as the light above him begins to fade, hearing Nero's desperate cries grow tragically distant. He struggles to swim, but his body remains utterly paralyzed as vivid memories flash rapidly before his eyes. He wonders if his journey truly ends in this suffocating dark pit. However, just as despair threatens to consume him, a poignant vision of his younger self clutching the cat appears. He suddenly realizes he cannot give up, not yet, because he still has an important promise to keep. Deep within a silent, echoing void, a mysterious voice questions the unconscious protagonist, asking why he remains so utterly still. Confused, the protagonist demands the voice identify itself. Suddenly, large, commanding text flashes before him, powerfully commanding him to accept it. A relentless torrent of urgent thoughts rains down, urgently pushing him to save Nero and embrace his true color. The protagonist's face becomes completely obscured by creeping shadow, as the unseen voice powerfully demands he reclaim his lost power. A shadowy hand reaches out, from a swirling vortex of deep black liquid. The protagonist stands completely motionless, as a tendril of pure darkness dissipates above him. He slowly looks down at his trembling hands, now writhing with volatile black energy. Confused as to how he ended up submerged in the ink, his fragmented memories swirl chaotically, but he forcefully pushes those disorienting thoughts aside, to focus solely on what truly matters. Now, a chilling silhouette of shadow with piercing glowing white eyes, he silently questions what monstrous entity he has become. A soft, desperate whimpering sound cuts sharply through the chilling silence, immediately catching the newly transformed entity's attention. He looks up, his gaze finding two blurry, indistinct figures, standing high above him, clutching a small cage. Inside, Nero cries out at the sight of his companion, jolts our hero back to reality. He vows he must save Nero. He extends a shadowy hand toward the men. Then, without warning, a colossal geyser of dark energy erupts from the depths. The green-haired man and his assistant recoil in sheer terror, screaming, as they stare down into the disposal pit, and are utterly shocked to see this. The deadly pool of ink has completely vanished, leaving only a lone, dark figure standing at the bottom. The entity, emanating an ominous aura, begins to stalk toward them. The green-haired man trembles uncontrollably in fear, his eyes wide with utter disbelief, as a gigantic claw of shadow descends upon them. He stammers, wondering if this terrifying being is truly a creature. The aftermath of the explosion leaves a scene of total devastation. In the Shadow District, a frantic older man screams at a police officer, insisting he saw a small hand suddenly spring out from nowhere, causing a massive eruption of dark energy that completely wrecked the entire area. As the dust settles, medics carry away the unconscious bodies of the green-haired attacker and his assistant. A new group of arrivals observes the victims. A man with red hair and a woman with blue hair look down at the injured men, noting that these B-rank pioneers have completely lost their color. The blue-haired woman is baffled, unable to understand what could drain a person's color, but her companion suggests they focus on their mission. The red-haired man states they came because of reports of a large creature appearing within the city. The police officer on site is stunned to realize he's speaking to a high-ranking colorist. He nervously asks why such elite individuals are in the Shadow District, and the blue-haired woman politely explains they are there to investigate. The red-haired man asks to be shown the impact site, and the intimidated officer leads the way. The two investigators stand before the massive crater. The red-haired man inspects the debris and spots ominous dark stains while his partner confirms there are definite traces of a creature. She points out it's highly irregular for one to suddenly appear inside the city, especially in the outskirts. She explains that, usually, only small animals are found within the city walls. Staring into the deep pit, the red-haired man wonders if they're dealing with a new, monster variant. He looks bored, but serious. He realizes tracking this unique entity will be incredibly troublesome, since it doesn't fit the usual patterns. The scene shifts to a desolate landscape, where rubble is piled high. In the darkness, a cat cries out. Kay, lying in the shadows, groans in pain. He feels a rough tongue, and wakes up to find Nero licking his hair. Overcome with relief, Kay immediately pulls Nero into a tight hug, overjoyed that the cat is safe. However, the physical pain hits him, and he winces. Kei sits up, confused, and tries to piece together what happened. He remembers the bastards who attacked him and threw him into the vat. Recalling falling into the toxic, black liquid and sinking, his eyes widen in shock as he processes his survival. He holds up his hands in disbelief, wondering if the impossible has happened. He touches his head and feels something different. His hair, once white, is now jet black. Kei grips his new black hair, staring forward with utter confusion, unable to understand how he's still alive, or why his appearance has drastically changed. Standing in the pitch-black darkness, Kei looks around, wondering why he can't see anything. He calls out desperately to his companion, asking Nero to help. In response, the black cat leaps into the air and spins rapidly, emitting a blinding, white glow that illuminates the entire area. The sudden light reveals a terrifying scene. They are in a deep cavern, surrounded by swarms of dark, monstrous creatures. Kei stares in shock. He stammers, struggling to process their unfamiliar surroundings. Then, with a jolt, he realizes, with absolute horror, that they've been transported to the dreaded Black Lands. It's a desolate, dangerous wasteland far beyond the city's borders. He remembers this specific area, known as the Black Forest, is notoriously deadly, so much so that only B-rank pioneers are even permitted to enter. Suddenly realizing monsters are swarming towards them, Kei completely panics. He yells for Nero to follow and immediately flees, running for his life. The glowing cat flies right alongside him, illuminating the path as Kei desperately runs. He barely dodges a massive shadow-like serpent, exclaiming that the situation is unbelievably perilous. Despite the overwhelming danger, Kei manages to thank Nero for providing light. As they race deeper through the dark forest, they scramble up jagged rocky cliffs to escape the relentless beasts chasing them down. Kei follows Nero's guiding light as they leap down a deep, vertical drop, hoping to put crucial distance between themselves and the pursuing horde. As he runs, Kei's expression shifts from sheer terror to profound confusion as he notices something utterly strange about his own physical condition. He glances at his chest, where dark energy now visibly radiates, and realizes his body feels absolutely incredible. He notes, with utter surprise, that even after running for so significant a time, he's not tired in the slightest. He then leaps across a wide chasm with astonishing ease, realizing he's moving faster, and with far more agility than ever before. He lands firmly, utterly stunned by the sudden realization that his body is overflowing with a strange, new, mysterious energy. Suddenly, Nero senses danger first, his ears perking up as he notices a new threat rapidly approaching. A ferocious, wolf-like shadow creature lunges straight at Kei, catching him completely off guard. Kei realizes too late that his defensive stance is tragically weak, and he simply cannot block this attack. Certain he's about to meet his end, he squeezes his eyes shut and braces for the inevitable bite. The monster's teeth clamp down hard on Kei's arm, but instead of tearing skin, a loud, unexpected cracking sound echoes. The beast's teeth shatter completely upon impact, leaving the creature utterly confused. Kei opens his eyes, utterly stunned to find himself still alive. The shadow wolf, now defanged and utterly terrified, whimpers and scrambles back into the bushes. Kei inspects his arm, utterly shocked to find he's perfectly fine. Not a scratch. He stares at his hands in pure disbelief, thinking a hit like that should have been instantly fatal. His eyes widen as he finally grasps that this incredible durability is the very color power he's been desperately searching for. Suddenly, heavy tremors violently shake the ground, instantly drawing both Kei's and Nero's attention, and a massive silhouette begins to ominously rise from the darkness. Towering over them, a giant, one-eyed monster clambers over the ridge, glowing with a terrifying, menacing energy. Kei stares up in utter horror, immediately identifying the beast as a cyclops. As the monster raises a massive arm, ready to crush him, Kei wonders why a predator that usually lurks deep in the Black Forest is this far out of its territory. The cyclops slams its colossal fist into the ground, with devastating, explosive force, causing Nero to yelp as sharp debris flies everywhere. Kei survives the impact, sitting amidst the smoking rubble. He admits the blow was heavy, but a confident grin spreads across his face, as he realizes he actually has a fighting chance to win. Memories of his past, being a lonely child, facing rejection and constantly being beaten down, flash through his mind. He acknowledges that he has finally obtained the power he always longed for, and decides things will be different now. Energy crackles around his arm as he clenches his fist, resolving that he does not need to run away anymore. Kei stands his ground, clenching his fist, resolving he is done running. Memories of his past struggles flood his mind. He focuses on that strange, powerful sensation rising from deep within, and suddenly his entire body is engulfed in shadow. He transforms into a being of pure, dark energy, with terrifying, glowing white eyes. The Cyclops roars furiously and reaches out with its giant hand to crush the now small figure. However, K launches himself off the ground, with explosive force, soaring through the air. He prepares to strike, then delivers a devastating punch that utterly shatters the giant monster into a million pieces. The sheer force of the blow unleashes a massive shockwave, blasting through the entire landscape and carving a path straight through the trees. K soars gracefully through the air, surrounded by the scattered debris of his foe. He remains in his powerful transformed state for a moment, but then, his eyes widen, noticing something shifting within him. The dark energy suddenly dissipates, and he finds himself effortlessly floating, high above a breathtaking, lush landscape. Under a bright sun, he gazes down, in awe at the vibrant forest and the powerful waterfall below, amazed by the vivid, untamed colors of nature all around him. Just as quickly as it came, the immense power vanishes, and his hair turns back to its natural white. He looks down in utter confusion. Panic quickly sets in as he realizes gravity is violently taking over, leaving him utterly helpless in the open air. Screaming in sheer terror, he plummets rapidly toward the trees, and crashes violently into the dense forest below. K slowly drags himself out of the painful debris from his brutal fall, while Nero hovers anxiously above, looking deeply concerned. K collapses to his knees, desperately gasping for air, as the dark, oppressive energy that enveloped him begins to evaporate like thin smoke. He suddenly realizes, with dawning horror, that his very color is rapidly fading away. Absolute panic sets in as K finally understands the devastating drawback of his potent new ability. He realizes that the more he taps into this intense, raw power, the faster it violently drains from his very essence, and at this terrifying rate, he will be left utterly defenseless. Suddenly, the world around him plunges into pitch black, and a chilling, mysterious voice echoes deep within his mind, demanding to know what he is waiting for. The voice aggressively commands him to act, pointing out that his prey is lying helpless right in front of him, and urging him to devour it quickly. K looks down at the gruesome, scattered remains of the Cyclops. He just brutally defeated. The voice continues to manipulate him, coldly asking if he truly wants to live, and instructing him to simply reach out his hand. Exhausted and drenched in sweat, K desperately struggles to stay conscious. He looks utterly desperate, as the voice relentlessly continues to demand he use his hand. His eyes glow faintly as he fiercely fights for his very survival. Trembling, he slowly obeys the primal, instinctual command, and reaches his trembling hand toward the monster's gruesome remains. K places his hand firmly on the carcass of the Cyclops. Immediately, a dark technique activates, and he begins to absorb the shadowy energy, lingering in the monster's body. Nero watches with wide, shocked eyes as his owner performs this terrifying feat. A massive pillar of black light erupts from the forest, piercing the sky as K fully consumes the energy. As the light fades, K is left panting heavily, the exhaustion slowly leaving his body. He leans back against a rock, his hair black once again, and his energy restored. He looks up at the sky, letting out a sigh of immense relief, realizing that he is going to survive. Back at the Mari workshop, the day seems peaceful inside. Mari is working on a blueprint. When the door chime catches her attention, she looks up to see a mysterious, silhouetted figure in a ragged cloak. Standing in the doorway trying to be polite, Mari welcomes the stranger with a smile, though she is already trembling with nervousness. She asks if they have a special request, but the hooded figure simply stands there, emanating a dark aura. The stranger takes a heavy step forward. Marie, now visibly nervous, calls out to him, pointing out that he looks suspicious. When he continues to approach, she panics and grabs a large wrench, warning him that she will attack if he comes any closer. The figure suddenly rushes toward her, causing Mari to scream in terror and squeeze her eyes shut. However, the intruder stops and pulls back his hood, revealing a familiar smile. He tells her to calm down. K reveals his face, scratching his head sheepishly. He tells her it is just him, though he admits he barely recognizes himself now. Marie drops her defensive stance, her eyes wide with shock. She stammers, unable to process the drastic change in his features. Her voice echoes outside as she screams in disbelief, demanding to know what happened to his appearance. Marie is shaking, clutching a metal pipe in fear, as she faces the hooded figure. Suddenly, her fear turns into explosive rage. She whips out a hammer and a wrench, screaming she won't forgive the bastards who hurt him. She wildly swings the tools, shouting her rage, shouting they deserve to have their heads smashed in, while Kay frantically tries to calm her down, assuring her he's fine. Realizing it's truly him, Marie slowly sets the wrench down admitting she got completely carried away, because she was utterly terrified. After losing all contact with him, her expression softens into a relieved smile, and she tells Kay she's just happy he's safe. Kay apologizes for making her worry so much. Internally, Kay reflects on the absurdity of his situation, thinking that surviving a fall into toxic ink and actually gaining a color is just unbelievable. He voices a concern to Marie, noting that his new color is black, which is often associated with monsters, and wonders if people will look at him in a bad light. However, he quickly brushes that worry aside, deciding that what truly matters is that he finally has the chance to become a colorist. He declares he'll go straight to the pioneering course entrance exam and thanks Marie for all her help. Kay then sheepishly asks if he can borrow some clothes, promising to return them. Marie looks exasperated, sighing and asking how many times he's going to beg. However, she smiles warmly, telling him to consider it an investment in a future colorist. She suddenly grabs Kay's hand and pulls him along, telling him to follow her. Kay looks surprised, as she cheerfully announces she has the perfect items. For him, the scene shifts to a large crowd of aspiring pioneers, marching up the stairs of a massive, coliseum-like building. Inside, hundreds of participants gather on the floor, which is marked with large white square platforms, preparing for the exam. Among the crowd, a group of 3 men chats nervously. A man with blue hair and the No. 183 on his chest tries to calm his anxious friend. The friend, with pinkish hair, expresses disbelief that they've made it this far, preparing to take the test for the prestigious Dawn Pioneering Corps. This S-rank group is known for its incredible achievements. Embarking on the perilous Black Lands are skilled colorists, considered the Shining City's last hope. But anxiety grips the candidates, as formidable rivals have converged. The group spots a woman with long turquoise hair, rumored to be the heir of a renowned color family, standing beside a man in a beanie. They also notice other rising stars, like a pink-haired boy with goggles and a man in a gas mask. Yet, despite these formidable competitors, the group collectively agrees that one person steals all the attention. They glance toward a young man with messy, green hair and incredibly fierce eyes. This is Gale, the Gale Sword, believed by all to be guaranteed to pass. Whispers claim he's powerful enough to face dangerous creatures, entirely on his own. However, he's also infamous for his cruel, violent nature, which reportedly led to his expulsion from his previous corps. The blue-haired man, number 183, laughs arrogantly, declaring he isn't afraid of guys like Gale. Suddenly, a dark shadow falls over him. Gale appears right behind the boastful man, daring him to repeat himself. The blue-haired man freezes in sheer terror, as Gale looks down with utter contempt, calling them ridiculous brats. Gale walks away, sighing in disappointment. He gripes that, despite this being an S-rank exam, the competition is shockingly underwhelming. As he surveys the participants, he mentally dismisses them all, believing not a single one stands out. However, his eyes narrow as he spots one exception. The turquoise-haired girl. He identifies her as Ellie Cyan, the second daughter of the Cyan family. Gale smirks, admitting she's at least decent enough to be noticed. As he extends a hand out toward the crowd, in his mind, he wonders with eager anticipation how they'll all react to the grueling upcoming test. A mechanical speaker crackles to life, demanding the candidates' attention. Gale and Ellie both turn their heads toward the stage. As the voice echoes a powerful declaration, the Dawn Pioneering Corps' entrance exam is officially underway. A man with striking blonde hair and piercing yellow eyes steps onto the podium, proclaiming the test begins times now asterisk. The crowd gasps in shock, realizing their examiner is a renowned colorist from the prestigious Dawn Pioneering Corps. The candidates buzz with excited whispers, recognizing him as a true hero who played a crucial role in a recent creature hunt. They quickly understand that, if an elite colorist like Times has appeared, the Corps must be dead serious about this recruitment. The candidates feel an overwhelming, palpable presence, radiating from him. Noting that S-rank Corps members truly operate on a different level, the examiner gazes down at the crowd and offers a cold welcome. He thanks everyone for applying, acknowledging they all have their own unique goals, be it money, power, honor, or duty. However, he states, coldly, that none of those reasons, times matter. His eyes glowing, the examiner explains that, in the end, only pure skill allows a person to achieve anything. He then declares, they are seeking overwhelmingly strong candidates, capable of venturing deep into the Black Lands, to reclaim lost human territory. He tells them to times look around asterisk, stating that mediocre individuals are simply not needed, and that they will start times immediately asterisk. He gestures toward the square platforms on the ground, announcing the first test will be a brutal tournament. He explains that raw combat ability is the most important skill for a pioneer, because the world outside the city walls is a truly brutal place, where only the strongest survive. He clenches his fist, and commands the candidates to prove their abilities **. He explains that those who advance past the first round will be decided solely by the tournament results, and instructs them to step onto the designated stage when their number is called. The examiner calls out number 126 and number 286. Gale, number 126, steps forward with a grim, determined expression. The crowd murmurs, calling Gale a heavyweight and expressing pity for whoever has to fight him. So early. Gale, however, lets out a wicked smile, thinking he is lucky to have some fun right from the start, because he was dying of boredom. His eyes narrow with predatory excitement as he wonders how he should play with his opponent. Gale notices someone approaching the stage, wondering what is up with the creepy guy walking toward him. Standing opposite Gale is a figure, completely hidden in a ragged cloak, wearing the number tag 286. Gale analyzes him, thinking the hooded figure's stance looks awkward and weak. Gale grips the hilt of his weapon, deciding talking doesn't matter anymore. He draws his sword with a sharp sound, declaring he is tired of being quiet. Unleashing his power, he swings his blade, creating massive streaks of green wind energy. Deciding not to hold back, the spectators watch in awe, recognizing the signature technique as the Gale sword. As glowing, green swords materialize in the air around him, the crowd praises him as a genius for handling such advanced swordsmanship at his age. Gale stares intensely at his opponent, challenging the hooded figure to try and block his attack with a burst of speed. Gale stomps the ground to gather momentum, threatening to shred his opponent. If he fails to defend himself, he charges forward with incredible force, surrounding himself in a whirlwind of energy. The hooded figure stands completely still and silent, unmoving in the face of the approaching attack. As Gale descends from the air, swinging his blade down with a shout, the hooded figure simply steps in and delivers a devastating left hook to Gale's face. The impact is so powerful that Gale is sent flying backward across the arena. The arrogant candidates from earlier scream in terror at the unbelievable sight. Gale crashes violently into the arena wall, creating a massive spider web of cracks. He slumps forward, unconscious and defeated in a single hit, leaving the crowd absolutely stunned. How such a feat was even possible. The hooded figure, now revealed as K, rubs his wrist, eyes cast down, admitting the sudden movement startled even him. His hood tumbles back, revealing his messy black hair. He reflects on the sudden surge of speed and the chaos of that moment. Suddenly, a spectator points a trembling finger at K, screaming in disbelief. He's not pointing at the victory, but at the color of K's energy, black. The blonde examiner watches with a serious expression, internally noting that black is the very color of the creatures. Even Ellie Cyan looks utterly stunned, wondering if it's even truly possible for a human to possess that color. K stands alone in the center of the arena, completely unaware of the situation's true gravity. The others question if the power to defeat the Gale sword in a single hit comes from this mysterious, black energy. K looks around nervously at the shocked crowd, confused by their intense reaction, and innocently wonders if he's made some kind of mistake. The tournament continues, featuring intense battles. In one match, a terrified candidate launches sharp, deadly stones, but K charges forward, easily evading them. He closes the distance instantly and delivers a devastating punch, sending the magic user flying. The announcer declares him the winner. K's winning streak continues as he dominates, violently slamming another opponent and knocking out a third. High above, the blonde examiner watches with keen interest, declaring that K is the standout applicant. He excitedly notes that K is the first ever black holder and insists they must recruit him immediately, before rumors spread. Suddenly, heavy footsteps approach, and a voice casually remarks that it looks like a tough day. The blonde examiner turns in surprise to see the red-haired man and blue-haired woman from the explosion site. The examiner asks why team leader Red is here, but the man simply waves his hand, claiming they were just passing through. They briefly discuss the ongoing investigation into the colossal creature incident. The red leader lets out a sigh, admitting they've made no progress. He then asks about any worthy candidates. The examiner brings up the young lady from the Tyan family and an incredibly unique candidate. Suddenly, the red leader's eyes widen, sensing something. He glances into the arena and spots K, immediately noticing his dark energy. As the examiner praises K, the red leader silently fixates on the boy. The blue-haired woman whispers to her leader, asking if that kid is connected to their investigation. The red leader confirms it's likely him, Internally, the Red leader concludes that a new color, appearing right after the incident in the Shadow District, is too great a coincidence to ignore. He decides to keep a close watch on Kay for now. Unaware he's being observed, Kay looks at his clenched fist, smoking with dark energy. He's thrilled by his incredible power, realizing that becoming a pioneer is finally possible. However, he recalls the physical toll his transformation took, and warns himself to be cautious. He knows that if he overuses this power, and loses his color mid-fight, he'll be defenseless. A massive surge of freezing energy erupts from the arena, creating a wall of ice. Ellie Kion stands calmly amidst the icy mist. The announcer declares, "No, 17, the winner," revealing she has encased her opponent in a solid block of ice. The spectators, including Kay, watch in awe, commenting that the Tian family's color is always impressive. As Ellie walks down the stairs, Kay watches her, wondering how anyone could defeat such overwhelming magic. Suddenly, Ellie stops as she passes Kay, staring directly at him with a sharp, curious gaze. Her blue eyes narrow suspiciously as she scrutinizes him without a word. With a turn, she continues on her way, leaving Kay utterly confused. The announcer declares the first exam has concluded. The blonde examiner takes the podium, thanking everyone for their hard work. He explains they're behind schedule, so they'll move straight to the next test. He then instructs failed candidates to leave, and they walk away, completely dejected. The blonde examiner begins to announce the next test, but is interrupted by a hand on his shoulder. The red-haired man steps forward with a confident smile, taking over. He looks at the surviving candidates, and boldly declares that the second exam will be led personally by him. The candidates look up in shock, realizing who stands before them. Colorist Red, he's one of the Shining City's strongest colorists, famous for retaking the Black Lands. However, the candidates are terrified, recalling the rumors that his destructive power is so intense, so even allies hesitate to work with him, and that when he's in charge of an exam, no one ever passes. The blonde examiner looks worriedly at colorist Red, asking if he's sure, warning that the captain will scold him for changing the exam format. Red simply laughs it off, stating he gets nagged times every times day anyway. He announces that the test is simple, and tells the crowd to just times endure asterisk. As his body erupts in massive flames, a giant wave of fire surges toward the terrified applicants, forming individual spherical barriers around each person, trapping them. The candidates panic as they're enveloped in intense heat. Red explains he's recreated the environment of a certain region, noting it'll get pretty hot. He illustrates that the Black Lands are full of extreme environments, where humans can barely survive. He then belittles the current test, claiming this heat is nothing more than a warm stove. With a serious expression, Red reiterates that if they times endure asterisk, however, they pass. His eyes narrow, cold, and sharp, as he adds that anyone who can't brave this heat never truly qualified to be a pioneer. Inside the fiery spheres, candidates are agonizing. A man realizes he can't even scratch the barrier, while others shriek in sheer agony. Terrified, they wonder what kind of hellish nightmare the Black Lands truly are. If this is considered mild. Watching from the sidelines, the blonde examiner notes that, despite the rumors, Red's skills haven't dulled one bit. He marvels at Red's incredible control, observing how he instantly enveloped so many. He acknowledges that this level of power is exactly what one expects from someone, at the very peak. Suddenly, a loud cracking sound rips through the air. Red and his assistant turn to look, as one of the fire barriers turns blue and visibly fractures. A massive surge of ice energy bursts outward, shattering the fire sphere completely. Amidst the falling shards of ice, Ilikion stands tall, having triumphantly broken free. Red looks at her, admitting, "This is quite good." He reflects that while the Kion family's power is a natural counter to fire attacks, his own power is typically strong enough to overwhelm that advantage entirely. Staring at the young woman, Red concludes she might actually deserve the title of a true prodigy. Red's thoughts then turn to the other candidate they had their eyes on. Inside his fire sphere, Kay appears to be completely still. Red observes him, noting that, unlike the girl, this boy isn't breaking through at all. He admits he didn't expect much from him anyway. However, inside the barrier, Kay is in a state of sheer panic, internally screaming that he's in deep trouble. He realizes he used far too much of his color during his intense fight with the Gale Sword. He looks at his hand in growing horror, noticing his black energy is leaking out rapidly and draining even faster in the intense heat. Kay imagines a terrifying future, his power completely running out. He knows that if he's revealed to be colorless, he will likely be experimented on relentlessly. Desperate, He frantically searches for a solution. He wonders if he can absorb something, anything, to replenish his energy. His gaze locks onto the intense wall of fire. Suddenly, a profound realization hits him. Since the barrier times is times a color ability, he wonders if he can just absorb it. He glances at his hand, admitting to himself he doesn't know the true limits of his absorption power. Realizing he has no time to hesitate, he resolves to find out times now asterisk. He reaches out, touching the swirling, fiery barrier. Immediately, a violent reaction erupts. Kay is utterly shocked. Direct absorption times is times working. The fire barrier begins to warp, twist, and contort. Instantly, it draws the attention of nearby candidates. A massive vortex of black energy bursts forth from Kay, sucking the searing red flames straight into his hand. From the podium, Red and the blonde examiner stare down below. Stunned, they're utterly unable to comprehend the sight. Red visibly breaks out in a nervous sweat, forcing a strained smile. He remarks, "They've found a real times lunatic in this arena." Kay stands tall amidst the dissipating energy, looking terrifyingly powerful and utterly dominant. With a fearsome red and black aura swirling around his hands, the entire arena descends into a heavy, stunned silence. Internally, however, Kay is panicking times again. Asterisk. He forces a smile, thinking, this wasn't supposed to happen. He realizes, with immediate regret, he's accidentally stood out way times too much. Ellie Cayenne stands utterly frozen stiff, questioning if she's hallucinating the whole thing. As she stares intently at the young man, enveloped in dark energy, she then looks at Kay and wonders. And then she truly wonders, if black is even a color a human can times possess, asterisk. Recognizing this as something utterly unprecedented, a wave of profound anxiety washes over her as she watches him. Memories of the immense pressure to times be the best asterisk flash vividly through her mind. She's forced to admit that Kay is undeniably times strong asterisk. She realizes that even unleashing her full power, she couldn't guarantee a definitive win. As Kay finally turns and walks away, Ellie thinks, there's something about him that cannot be explained by mere strength alone. Asking herself, what times is times he, actually? She quickly shakes her head, snapping out of it, trying to banish those unsettling thoughts. Colorist Red strides over to Kay and casually slings an arm over his shoulder, telling him, next time won't be like this. Red just smiles, remarking that Black's ability to suck everything in was utterly wild, sparking his insatiable curiosity. He then guides Kay away, suggesting they have a private conversation to protect Kay's privacy, while he satisfies his own burning questions. Kay, sweating nervously, asks about the exam status. Red assures him that with a power level like times that asterisk, he obviously passes. Kay is stunned, realizing drawing so much attention actually worked in his favor. He's overcome with emotion, thinking he has times finally asterisk achieved his dream of becoming a pioneer. Suddenly, the blonde examiner yells at Red for acting on his own. Red just laughs it off, asking his colleague to overlook it just this once. The examiner sighs and announces that, despite the interruption, the exam will continue. He clarifies that no, 17, Ellie, has passed because she broke the barrier. The other candidates will undergo an additional test. Ellie ignores the announcement, her gaze fixed on the dark tunnel, where Red is leading Kay away. The scene shifts to an industrial setting. Red stands outside a car with Kay, while the blue-haired investigator sits in the driver's seat. Red tells her to wait. Kay looks at his surroundings, and his expression turns to pure shock. He stares at a massive landscape of rubble and destruction, realizing with horror that Red has brought him back to the exact location where he fell into the ink waste. Colorist Red looks over the devastated ruins, remarking that it's an ugly sight. He explains that a major incident occurred here, causing Kay to freeze. Red recounts that for the first time in history, 2 pioneers were found, completely drained and utterly colorless. He then adds that eyewitnesses spotted a massive creature at the site. Red suddenly turns sharply to Kay, pointing out the incredibly suspicious timing. He points out that right after that creature appeared, was the very first to possess the color black. He calls it a coincidence, his eyes glowing intensely. Red carefully analyzes Kay's power, describing it as an ability that absorbs all other colors. Kay sweats nervously as Red stares him down intently, declaring this is an utterly foreign ability. Internally, Kay's mind screams in panic. He realizes Red suspected the connection from the very start. He frantically wonders if he can possibly run, but seeing the man's overwhelming aura, he realizes escaping a hero is utterly impossible. Suddenly, Red bursts into laughter, shattering the tension. He waves his hand, admitting he was just testing Kay all along, but then complains, K's honest reaction completely ruined the fun. K looks at him, utterly bewildered. Red then clarifies that, while his official job is to investigate the incident, he's personally far more interested in K's unique ability. Red explains that color powers normally cannot mix, not at all. However, he observes that K's ability seems to completely ignore those rules. He then recalls the second exam, pointing out that K clearly couldn't control his power back then. K then stammers, desperately trying to explain, but Red sharply interrupts him. The colorist's body begins to glow with red energy, and he declares that they need to run a test. K looks at him, utterly confused. Red extends his hand, explaining that he needs to understand precisely how this ability works. He then smiles confidently, challenging K to try absorbing his energy now. K's panic flares, and he tries to refuse, frantically warning Red it's far too dangerous. Red merely laughs, telling the rookie he's far too early to even be worrying about someone of his level. K falls utterly silent, looking intense and nervous, as Red commands him to stop talking and just try it. Black symbolizes the Black Lands, an ominous force that devours everything. Red believes leaving such a dangerous ability unchecked is simply unacceptable. It could easily shake the foundations of the Shining City. A dark secret then crosses his mind. People don't know it yet, but humanoid creatures truly exist. He silently warns K. If he ever faces them, or worse, becomes one himself, the colorist might have to eliminate him. K sighs, sensing the terrifying pressure radiating from Red. Despite the intimidation, K agrees to the test. He nervously grabs Red's wrist, asking for confirmation that if anything goes wrong, it won't be his fault. As dark energy rises from his body, the moment they touch, a shockwave of energy distorts the air. K gasps as Red's energy violently surges into his arm, starkly contrasting with his own black aura. He immediately realizes he's made a terrible mistake. A massive explosion of fire erupts from their contact point, causing K to scream in absolute agony. Inside the inferno, he shouts for Red to stop, admitting he cannot control the immense power, and that it feels like molten lava is boiling inside his very being. In his vision, Red appears as a towering, godlike silhouette of pure, blazing fire, reinforcing why he truly is a hero. Red stands calmly within the swirling flames, observing. He notes that K's black energy is greedily sucking in his power, without rest, acting as if it's perpetually starving. He realizes that because K's power is so immature, strong individuals can resist the absorption, but this devastating ability would be instantly fatal to most ordinary people. As the flames swirl, Red's eyes narrow, with a deeper curiosity, as he thinks, what they saw during the exam cannot be the full extent of this ability. He decides he wants to know, not just how K absorbs colors, but how those absorbed colors are truly used. The situation rapidly escalates, as the energy between the two violently reacts. Red watches as the black energy from K's arm begins to warp and spike, powerfully mixing with the red aura. Suddenly, a massive explosion of red and black energy. Red erupts outward, blasting K back from the explosion. He stares in utter shock at the figure. Emerging from the smoke, K has partially transformed. The right side of his body is now encased in jagged, demonic armor, solidified from furious red and black energy. Red grinds his teeth, realizing this form feels ominously familiar. As he stares at that monstrous, clawed hand and glowing eye, Red admits to himself that he'd believe he was looking at a creature. The terrifying resemblance confirms his gravest suspicions, and he realizes, with chilling certainty, that K was behind the incident. Where the other pioneers lost their colors, K struggles fiercely to maintain consciousness. Red decides his top priority is safety, and he resolves to put out the fire. Before K goes on a rampage, he summons a scorching ball of flame, preparing to subdue K by force. However, K lets out a low, guttural growl, making Red pause. The boy seems to be fighting something else entirely. The scene shifts to K's internal perspective, a pitch-black void, filled with demanding red text. The voices of the power scream at him, demanding intense color and urging him to bring more. K gasps in the real world, distressed by these invasive, echoing voices. The voices continue to tempt him, telling him it's wasteful to hold back, and urging him to take it. K mentally screams at the voices to shut up and stay still, with fierce determination. K's visible eye glows crimson. He fiercely rejects the temptation, ordering the power to shut up and stay crushed. As he exerts his will over the chaotic energy, a powerful shockwave blasts outward. As he forcibly compresses the energy back down, the jagged armor dissipates, leaving Red with a look of genuine surprise. K is left panting heavily from the immense exertion. Red looks at him, impressed and utterly stunned, asking if the rookie actually managed to suppress that overwhelming power. On his own, Kei is left panting, his heart racing like mad. He thinks it's insane that he survived, and frantically wonders why he went berserk. He nervously glances up, absolutely terrified he'd lost control right in front of a colorist. Knowing he desperately needs to understand his ability, he hesitantly approaches the older man. The Red, though, looks delighted, admitting he was caught off guard. Because the power Kei absorbed was far stronger than he expected. But he grins and declares the experiment a success, simply because it was fun. He tells Kei that to achieve anything, he has to be willing to take risks. Red decides that's enough for the test, but then pauses, adding, "There's one more thing." He reminds Kei he's the investigator, assigned to the destruction incident, at this very spot, and his duty is to find the culprit. With a calm yet threatening smile, he points out the person right in front of him. Looks like a perfect suspect. Kei freezes, his face going pale with panic. Red explains the true gravity of the situation. He recalls how witnesses saw a massive shadow creature, warning Kei that more people are interested in this case than he thinks. He argues that, once rumors about Kei's black ability spread, it'll be easy for authorities to pin the blame on him. He gestures to the ruined industrial district, noting the damages will cost hundreds of millions. He adds that, if city leadership decides Kei is too dangerous, he could be banished, or even worse, turned into a lab rat. Kei grits his teeth, seething in frustration, realizing he's utterly trapped. He knows there's no way to prove his innocence. Suddenly, Red offers a lifeline. He suggests if Kei agrees to come under his command, he might be able to do something asterisk. Without a second times of hesitation, Kei bows at a 90-degree angle, loudly shouting that he puts himself in Red's care. Red tells him to listen to the full times condition first. He clarifies he won't fix everything for free, of course. In exchange, Kei will have to grant him a few favors. He asks if Kei thinks he can handle that, and Kei forces a desperate, trembling smile. Internally, he screams that anything is better than owing millions, or becoming a science experiment. He loudly agrees with fervent conviction, vowing to do anything Red could ever need. Amidst the desolate wasteland, a small creature trembles, paralyzed with fear. Just moments before a massive wheel slams down hard, narrowly missing it as a huge vehicle roars past. A massive, armored transport truck grinds through the foggy, rugged terrain of the Blacklands. Inside, Kei gazes out the window, thinking this is his first time traveling so far out, and wondering if this truly marks his first real step as a pioneer. Suddenly, his thoughts are shattered by Gale, a green-haired man who glares daggers at him, calling him Black-Haired One. Gale rudely snaps that Kei is being distracting, and curtly orders him to shut up, even though Kei hasn't uttered a single word. Kei stares at him, utterly confused. Kei sits awkwardly in the transport bay. He thinks to himself, starting as a pioneer immediately was exactly what he wanted, but the atmosphere here is incredibly tense. He glances nervously at the furious Gale, and the silent Ellie Cyan, questioning if being on the same team is truly the right move. A flashback reveals a conversation from just the day before. Red asks a surprised Kei if he's ready to join the exploration team, explaining he needs him to go to a specific spot in the uncharted area. Seeing Kei's nervous expression, Red laughs reassuringly and tells him not to worry. Red shows Kei a map, assuring him he won't be alone. He explains that new recruits who pass the exam will also be deployed to the area and that the official roadmap will be announced soon. Kei just needs to be at the designated location on time. Back in the present, Kei looks at his teammates, noting they were already on the transport truck. It is revealed that because of Red's interference, which compromised the previous exam, the participants were given another chance. Many skilled individuals, including Gale, passed strict additional tests. Meanwhile, Ellie Cyan, the top-ranked rookie, joined Red's team at her own specific request. Gale stares at Kei with intense resentment, unable to believe he was humiliated by such a fool. He thinks back to their brutal fight. Convinced his loss was only due to a momentary lapse in focus, he vows it will never happen again. He then turns his threats on Kei, warning him to be ready once this exploration concludes. He mutters that if Ravian hadn't been right behind him, Kei would already be dead. Ellie Cyan interrupts, her voice cutting and cold, telling Gale to stop his endless babbling. She mocks him, saying he'd probably crumple in one hit. Again. Gale whirls on her in a furious rage, demanding to know what she just said. Ellie dismisses him with a wave, stating plainly that Gale is no match for Kei. Kei looks at Ellie, a flicker of surprise and hope in his eyes, thinking perhaps she's someone he can finally connect with. However, Ellie then turns her chilling gaze to Kei, confusing him by bringing up a past agreement they supposedly made. She glares at him intensely, stating that the loser needs to stay quiet and follow orders, leaving Kay utterly bewildered. Kay stands awkwardly, trapped between the two hostile pioneers, feeling the intense pressure. He lets out a heavy sigh, realizing this team dynamic will be incredibly difficult to manage. The scene shifts as the transport vehicle glides across the dark, eerie waters of the wasteland, heading towards a distant, imposing facility. The vehicle soon arrives at a bustling loading dock, alive with workers diligently moving supplies. The group disembarks. Kay, Ellie, Gale, and the other recruits step out into the forward base for the formidable Dawn Pioneering Corps. Kay is in awe of the sheer level of activity, noting the S-rank Corps' exceptional supplies, something he hadn't fully grasped when he ventured into the Black Lands alone. Suddenly, a playful finger pokes Kay's cheek, startling him. He turns to see a brightly smiling Mari, who cheerfully explains that, since this is his very first mission, she just had times to come along to support him. Mari opens her jacket, revealing Nero has also tagged along. Kay gently holds the black cat, thanking Mari for taking such good care of him. She smiles warmly, stating that Nero is family. She then explains she snagged a fantastic opportunity to join the exploration team as support staff, asserting her skills are incredibly useful here. A loudspeaker crackles, announcing that it's assembly time. The crowd of pioneers gathers, standing amidst the stark, gray wasteland. As the announcement drones on, that they'll soon enter the ominous Black Lands. Kay entrusts Nero to Mari, telling her to keep him safe. Mari warns him fiercely not to do anything reckless, and he just smiles, promising he'll see her later. Mari pulls Nero into a hug, but the cat suddenly leaps from her grasp, startling her completely. She shouts Nero's name as the cat dashes straight for Kay, and eerily sinks into the shadow on the ground. Mari's eyes widen in utter shock at this unnatural movement. Confused, she stammers, trying to call out to Kay. Meanwhile, the group arrives at a dark, fortified cave entrance. A woman with bright orange hair and a pristine white coat shouts for everyone to prepare themselves, announcing that a new recruit is about to enter the perilous Blacklands. She yells that safety is their absolute top priority, warning that reconnaissance has reported unidentified, dangerous creatures lurking in Area 21, a particularly hazardous zone, where the body of an A-rank creature was discovered. Suddenly, a male pioneer rushes up to the orange-haired woman, calling her Orancia. He nervously reports that the red team leader has brought the new recruits, but they've left their formation without permission. Orancia's eyes widen in shock, and she demands if it's true. The messenger confirms it, and Orancia sighs, muttering that guy is causing trouble again. Meanwhile, the renegade group secretly enters a dark canyon, leaving the main army's colorist far behind. Red reaches his hand into the deepening shadows, leading the way. The small squad, consisting of Kay, Gale, Ellie, and Red, separates from the main formation. Kay nervously asks the team leader if this is even allowed, pointing out that the main team is clearly heading in a different direction. Red confirms that their destination is indeed different. Kay glances back at Gale and Ellie, worried because this entire squad consists of new recruits. Gale suddenly snaps, demanding to know why he and Ellie were forced to follow, shouting that he heard Red only intended to take Kay, and he feels completely insulted. Red just smiles, his red aura blazing intensely. He explains that his personal guidance isn't something just anyone can receive, so it wouldn't be fair if Kay was the only one to benefit. He assures an angry Gale that, while he won't spoon-feed them, he also won't let them get seriously hurt. He cuts the conversation short, ordering them to move out. Kay's eyes widen as they encounter enemies. Deep inside a cavern, the group is surrounded by shadow creatures. While Red holds a lantern, Kay, Gale and Ellie engage in a chaotic melee. A massive, wolf-like beast lunges out of the darkness. Ellie Cyan reacts instantly, her blue energy sword piercing through the creature's body. She lands gracefully, realizing this is the reality of the Black Lands. Surrounded by glowing eyes, she notes the suffocating environment and constant waves of monsters, acknowledging it's different from training. She grips her sword, resolving to manage her strength carefully. Ellie glances over her shoulder, thinking she needs to move more efficiently. She looks at Kay and tells herself she doesn't want to fall behind him. Meanwhile, Kay grips a shadow creature by the neck and brutally crushes it with his bare hand. Ellie looks at Kay in total shock. She asks him why he isn't using a dropper. Kay hesitates, recalling the entry exam, and admits that he doesn't have one. He explains they are too expensive, and that he feels fine fighting without one, leaving Ellie staring in disbelief. Gale is flabbergasted, shouting, "It makes no sense for a pioneer to have never used one." A dropper is an essential tool for pioneers, used to infuse weapons with color energy. To fight creatures and properly hunt these monsters, one must color them using a dropper. The group looks at Kay, standing over the defeated enemies, and they question how he managed to defeat them, bare-handed, without the essential tool. Gale's hand trembles as he grips his own weapon. Acknowledging the vast gap in their powers, he remembers the humiliating exam. He couldn't even scratch someone, he realizes, who wasn't even using a dropper. Gale grits his teeth in pure frustration. He glares daggers at Kay's back, vowing to himself that he'll crush Kay with his own two hands one day. As they venture deeper into the cave, Red leads the way with a trusty lantern, while Gale trails behind, seething with anger. Red glances back at his squad with a smirk, thinking it's not bad to see two geniuses getting motivated by a mere rookie. He smiles, believing things are only going to get more interesting. He cheerfully urges the group to put in a bit more effort, telling them they're almost there, and suggesting they finish quickly to have a party. After the intense battle against the shadow beasts, the carcasses of the wolf-like creatures lie scattered. Colorist Red calls for a 10-minute break, though he warns the group, Gale, Kay, and Ellie Cyan, that the Times Real Times mission hasn't even begun yet. Gale sighs, complaining. He's used up a significant amount of his color energy. He pulls out a small bottle of glowing green liquid. As Gale drinks, Kay identifies it as personal ink. This specially refined alchemical ink is an essential but rare supply for pioneers that restores their color. Because it must be crafted to match the user's unique color, it's insanely expensive. Kay watches with envy as both Gale and Ellie drink their custom inks, wishing he had the funds for such luxuries. Kay quickly dismisses the thought, walking away from the group. He reaches his hand out toward a defeated shadow creature's corpse. A massive swirl of dark energy erupts from its body, as Kay activates his ability, absorbing the shadow directly into his hand. The black energy flows into him. Kay clenches his fist, his energy fully restored. He announces his recovery is complete. He turns back to his teammates. Everyone stares, eyes wide with horror and disbelief. Ellie, still hesitant, asks if he's truly okay. Kay casually waves off their concern, explaining he's done this plenty of times. Gale shouts, utterly disbelieving that Kay had just absorbed a monster without a single flinch. But before they can continue, Red abruptly interrupts, declaring that the break is officially over. The group ventures deeper into the canyon, until Red announces they've reached their destination. The team spots a massive, colossal, swirling dome of pure black energy blocking their way. Kay stares, muttering that it looks just like a black curtain. Red smirks at Kay's stunned expression, and then reveals that times dark barrier, is the exact reason he brought Kay here. To demonstrate, Red summons a glowing ball of red energy, and then unleashes a powerful beam at the black dome. The attack slams into the surface, but instead of breaking through, the energy is instantly devoured by the darkness. Red explains that, if anyone attempts to force the barrier open, it absorbs their power and becomes even tougher. He points out that this is remarkably similar to Kay's own ability, which is why he had a strong hunch that Kay would be the sole person capable of erasing it. Red points toward the massive dark wall, revealing that the true path to the ruins lies within. He then announces that within those very ruins hides their most crucial objective, the Stella fragment. Kay's eyes widen in pure shock. The other recruits are completely confused. Gale asks what Stella even is, and Ellie admits she's completely unfamiliar with it. Red assures them, declaring it absolutely exists, and that the Shining City is desperate to uncover it. He points a direct finger at Kay, ordering him to swiftly get rid of the curtain. Kay steps forward, confronting the towering wall of darkness. As he touches it, his absorption ability instantly activates, and the barrier's dark energy begins to flow violently into his hand as a massive vortex forms. As the giant dome is funneled away, decaying, Red, Gale, and Ellie watch, astonished, as the obstacle is devoured. Red watches on with an amazed grin, clearly delighted that his theory was correct. As the colossal barrier finally vanishes, he tells Kay that his power will be incredibly useful. Kay, however, looks distinctly unhappy. Sweating and trembling, he struggles to contain the immense energy he just absorbed. Suddenly, the ground shakes violently. Gale and Ellie panic as the tremors intensify, realizing the loud noise will surely attract hordes of deadly creatures. The loud rumble caused by Kay's actions echoes throughout the canyon. Suddenly, a horde of black, wolf-like monsters emerges from the cliffs. The group finds themselves surrounded. Ellie and Gale draw their weapons, while Red just laughs, amused that such a large crowd has gathered to welcome them. Commands the rest of the team to handle the creatures. while Kay focuses on removing the barrier. With a cold expression, the team leader orders his squad to wipe out every monster. Gale and Ellie leap into action. Gale moves with incredible speed, slicing the shadow creatures with wind-infused attacks. Ellie unleashes her power, summoning massive ice spikes from the ground that impale multiple enemies. As the two recruits clash fiercely, Red observes them. He notes that he was prepared to step in, but there is no need. He effortlessly summons orbs of red energy and fires beams that pierce through the remaining beasts. Red thinks that although they are new recruits, their skill level is high enough. Meanwhile, Kay continues to absorb the massive barrier. Sweating profusely, Red smiles, thinking how nice it is when his subordinates do all the hard work. While Red stands guard, Kay struggles with the volatile energy. Kneeling on the ground, he notices the barrier's power feels strangely similar to his own. He wonders if it's because they share the same black attribute. He realizes the danger if he loses focus. The barrier's massive energy will reverse the flow and steal his color instead. Kay grinds his teeth, refusing to be overpowered, and declares that he is the stronger one. With a final effort, the absorption completes. He's at the edge of the path, panting heavily as he confirms he's absorbed it all. He looks down at what was lurking behind the barrier, only to find a massive, pitch-black pit with no visible bottom. He wonders if this terrifying abyss is truly the entrance to the ruins. Task complete, he turns and calls out to the team leader, reporting the curtain's been successfully removed. Now that the barrier's gone, Red praises Kay for a job well done, and calls out to the rest of the team, announcing the curtain is down, and orders them to finish cleaning up. Suddenly, Red's expression shifts to pure shock, as he senses an immediate, deadly danger. Moving with blinding speed, he rushes forward, forcibly grabbing both Ellie and Gale, pulling them back. An instant later, a massive, invisible energy slice tears through the air, carving deep gouges into the ground. Where they had just been standing, the attack is devastating, shredding the remaining shadow monsters. Debris rains down as Red, Ellie, and Gale land safely on a higher slope. Gale stares in horror, realizing he would have been killed instantly without Red's quick intervention. Red looks grim, sighing that the earlier lack of resistance was because something else was scaring the monsters away. He recalls a report that a dangerous entity was lurking nearby. Through the dust, a silhouette appears, walking toward them, dragging a massive sword. Red remarks that they're out of time to fool around. The attacker steps into the light. It's a man with spiky hair, white on one side and black on the other. Half his face is consumed by a dark, mask-like growth, and he carries a collection of different weapons. On his back, the stranger glares at the pioneers with a terrifying aura. Red stands between his team and the new threat, ordering Kay and the others to listen carefully. Red hurriedly shoves a lantern into Kay's hands, giving him a frantic order. He tells Kay and the others that they must enter the ruins immediately to find the Stella fragment. Kay looks at the team leader with wide, anxious eyes. He asks if Red expects them to go down there by themselves. Red assures him that with their abilities, they're more than capable. However, Red doesn't wait for them to agree. With a sudden burst of force, he shoves Kay, Ellie, and Gale toward the dark abyss, shouting at them to stop whining and just go. And Kay screams out the team leader's name in panic. As the three recruits plummet into the deep pit, left alone, Red stands with his back to the drop, his crimson aura glowing. The voice of one of the recruits echoes from the deep, asking, "What are we supposed to do on our own?" While the menacing silhouette of the armed stranger looms behind Red. The two powerful figures lock eyes in a tense standoff, and Red knows a difficult battle is about to begin. The scene shifts to the pitch-black bottom of the abyss. Kay lies motionless after the long fall. He groans in pain, clutching his head as he struggles to stand in the suffocating darkness. Remembering the lantern Red gave him, he activates it, wondering if he is inside the ruins. The light flares to life, illuminating the area. His expression instantly shifts to one of absolute terror. He stands frozen in shock, asking himself, "What is this place?" Instead of ancient stone ruins, the lantern illuminates the skeletal remains of massive, modern skyscrapers and concrete debris, looking exactly like a destroyed, modern city buried underground. Kay stands on a ledge, using his lantern to light the darkness. He is speechless at the sight of the massive, ruined city structures buried underground. He marvels that such a place could exist, but complains he can't see clearly. Suddenly, a voice tells him to stop complaining and head toward the light. Kay is relieved to see his teammates, Gale and Ellie, admitting he was terrified of being separated. Gale snaps at Kay for leading them astray, but Ellie sharply retorts that Gale was just as clueless. Gazing out at the vast, ruined city, Gale questions what this place even is. He begins to feel anxious, pointing out the absurdity of trying to find a stela fragment in these endless ruins, when they don't even know what it looks like. Kay nods in agreement, admitting that searching blindly would take forever. Kay silently wishes his companion, Nero, were here. As if in response, a glowing shape appears, and he's shocked to see the small black cat, Nero, right at his feet. Kay panics, wondering how the cat possibly followed them. Ellie notices the creature, asking what kind of animal it is. Kay breaks into a cold sweat, thinking he's in deep trouble, now that his secret pet has been discovered. However, he quickly calms down, realizing this might be a golden opportunity to prove the cat's worth. He calls out to Gale and Ellie, holding Nero. Kay smiles confidently and announces he has a way to find the stela fragment. Easily, the group gathers, explains that the little creature he's been raising will lead them to their objective. Gale shouts angrily, refusing to believe it. However, while Gale argues, Ellie completely ignores him, captivated by the cat's undeniable cuteness. Kay decides to demonstrate Nero's abilities. The black cat cries out from Ellie's chest, then leaps out of her arms, startling her in mid-air. The cat transforms into a swirling vortex of energy. A blinding light erupts, illuminating the dark ruins, and leaving the group utterly shocked. The ball of light streaks forward, creating an illuminated path, and the three pioneers follow it. As they walk, Gale expresses his disbelief, questioning how a creature can possess such intelligence and such a special ability. He demands to know where Kay found it. Kay simply ignores him and interprets the glowing cat's movements, telling the group that Nero says, "The stela fragment is right there." Suddenly, the creature spots a trail and rockets off. The luminous trail snakes through the devastated city. Soon, the group arrives at a massive concrete structure. A dark tunnel entrance looms ahead, and Kay wonders just how much deeper they'll have to venture. Gale mocks him, asking if he's getting cold feet. Kay quickly retorts, declaring they're going in regardless. They walk through a massive, high-ceilinged corridor, with the glowing cat lighting their path. Kay remarks that this facility is far larger than he ever anticipated. Suddenly, he notices Nero hovering before a massive, metal door. He concludes it must have found something truly important. The eerie silence shatters with the heavy sound of a massive, mechanical foot. Kay freezes, as a colossal metal leg slams right before them. The recruits look up to see a towering, rusted automaton looming over them. Gale is utterly confused, noting it looks drastically different from the biological creatures they're used to fighting. Suddenly, the robot activates a piercing scanning beam, sweeping a sheet of light over Ellie's cyan hue. The machine quickly processes her data, displaying a hex code for her vibrant blue color. The scanner then shifts to Gale, registering his distinct green color code. The beam finally lands on Kay, who nervously realizes the machine is scanning their very colors to identify them. The machine completes the scan, displaying the hex code for absolute, pitch-black darkness. Upon detecting this, the robot's eye glows even brighter. It then dramatically announces it has detected the color of the Black Witch, and, identifying Kay as a critical threat, declares it will begin elimination. Confused by the sudden title, Kay is instantly blasted by the robot's devastating punch. Before he can even react, he's sent skidding backward, groaning in pain but miraculously managing to block the direct hit. He glares up at the machine with absolute fury, shouting in sheer frustration. Kay shouts defiantly at the imposing machine, declaring they will absolutely not hold back now. The giant robot raises its massive fist, threatening to utterly smash them. Kay charges forward, his fist slamming violently into the machine's metal arm. He recoils in pain, bewildered by its incredibly tough armor. Gale watches on, utterly confused, as the robot winds up for another devastating punch. Ellie steps in, her rapier flashing as she strikes the machine, but sparks fly furiously as her blade clangs against the armor. She stares in utter shock, realizing she hasn't left even a single scratch. Ellie panics, wondering if her powers are completely ineffective against this relentless machine. Meanwhile, Kay intently analyzes their formidable opponent, immediately noticing the glowing core in its chest. He spots liquid swirling ominously inside, quickly identifying it as the machine's true weak point. Kay dashes forward, unleashing a sharp left hook. But suddenly, the robot reacts with astonishing speed, swinging its arm like a massive club. Kay barely manages to evade the crushing blow. He retreats, frustrated that his normal attacks are utterly useless. Then, a sudden realization hits him. He remembers the time. His body was coated in a dark, ominous energy, and decides to unleash that hidden power. Knowing a full transformation consumes far too much color, He compromises by concentrating all his raw energy solely into his dominant right fist, coating it in a dense, pulsing layer of black aura. With his intense preparation complete, K leaps powerfully into the air and swings his enhanced fist with every ounce of his being. The blow lands perfectly, piercing straight through the robot's chest armor and utterly shattering its core. The sheer force of the punch completely obliterates the machine's upper body. The robot's head flies off, and the ominous light in its single eye finally fades. K stands triumphantly amidst the smoking wreckage, letting out a long sigh of immense relief as Gale and Ellie watch on in stunned silence. Amongst the scattered debris, K notices a unique round object and carefully picks up the robot's core, thinking Mari would be absolutely thrilled with it as a gift. Suddenly, a furious Gale yells directly at K, demanding to know exactly what that power was. He and Ellie quickly corner K, bombarding him with a flurry of questions. K nervously tries to deflect their incessant questions by claiming the technique severely drains his precious color. But as he speaks, the massive metal door behind them slowly begins to slide open, revealing an ominous, pitch-black void beyond. Suddenly, Nero bursts from the shadows. Panicked, the cat hovers close to K. Shaking with fear, K gazes at the dark doorway. He senses something deeply unsettling, but despite Nero's urgent warning, he steps closer, admitting he can't see a thing within. The moment his fingertips make contact, the black surface ripples like disturbed water. Suddenly, the darkness explodes outwards. Massive tendrils of shadow surge from the doorway, enveloping the group. Gale and Ellie scream as they're violently dragged toward the entrance. Helpless against the overwhelming force, all three are sucked into the terrifying black void. The group plummets through an endless black abyss, landing in a new, utterly pitch-black environment. Gale groans, clearly in pain, complaining about the brutal fall and the suffocating darkness. He lifts his hands to check on himself, then pauses, noticing something utterly bizarre. He looks down at his chest and grabs his jacket in pure shock. He realizes his color, the vibrant green that defines his power, has completely vanished, leaving him in stark black and white. Kay and Ellie stand frozen beside him, equally horrified. The entire world around them, including their own bodies, has lost all saturation. They stand bewildered in this monochrome reality, confused and absolutely terrified, wondering what in the world has happened to them.